Loud and Clear, the podcast by SADA for innovative business leaders and technology enthusiasts, where we explore how Google Cloud is transforming the industry and what that means to you. Now, here's your host, Tony Safoian.
Well, hello. Welcome to Cloud and Clear. Featuring today, we have Narine Galstian, our Chief Marketing Officer. Say hi, Narine.
Good morning, everybody. Hi, Tony.
Super excited to have you on the podcast.
Super excited to be here.
For many, many reasons. One of which is, I think, people always ask, sometimes even still internally, what does marketing do? There's so much that they interface and interact with that they have no idea that it's marketing that did that. So why don't you tell us in your words, what does marketing do?
Well, I'm super excited to have this opportunity to share what marketing does, even to internal teams. I think you're absolutely correct that while everyone in every department touches a component of marketing, they don't realize that marketing produced it or marketing had something to do with it, because it's become such a well-oiled machine, if you will, in the processes and workflows and how we get things out there from a branding perspective, from sales tactics, from digital side, that I think sometimes people take it for granted, the work that goes behind all of that. So what do? I oversee all aspects of marketing. That includes branding components, content marketing, developing all the wonderful content we share, whether it's in a blog, whether it's on a collateral pieces, whether it's, PR components, sales decks, enablement, collateral pieces, website, social media, that all goes through the marketing team. We also put on amazing events and conferences and executive events, sales events, whether it's partner facing or customer facing. Demand generation is a big part of what we do, right? We nurture leads through the sales funnel, get them to a place where they're ready to take the next step in their cloud transformation journey, have the conversation, engage with our, consulting and sales teams, and be able to really get them to the next level where they're innovating in the cloud. And we don't just do one project and that's it. We're done with that customer. We know that customers are for life, and we have to nurture them through that process. And that includes change management, user adoption, ongoing support services, and marketing touches all of those aspects through that funnel.
Yeah, and I think there's a additional aspect to the job at SADA, which is we're marketing to at least two completely distinct. We're marketing to two completely distinct groups, which is maybe three completely distinct groups. I would say organizations who are not yet our customers.
Correct.
Organizations that are already our customers.
Correct.
And the Google organization at Google Cloud.
Absolutely. From a partner perspective. Yes.
Right. That's because we're so tightly aligned with Google Cloud that their awareness of what we do, who we serve, how we do it, our offers, our capabilities, our philosophy, whatever, right? It's a different go-to-market motion than some other businesses who have marketing that aren't necessarily as tightly aligned with partners or a partner. And we do things with Okta and, AODocs and Lumaps and others as well, but the primary target from a partner standpoint is Google. So I think that's a little different.
It's definitely thought of as different, but the process is the same, actually. The principles of marketing that's applied to gaining a new customer is the same that we're gaining a new partner relationship, right? So you still want to bring the value add to that partner. It has to be a win-win on both sides. What do we bring to the Google team? How do they get value out of us as a partner? How do we benefit the customers they engage with? what is our services, ongoing and otherwise, right? How can we go to market together? How do we build relationships together? It really is similar in a lot of ways in developing that same type of communication and relationship with the brand new customer.
No, I agree. And it helps when all those things are aligned. Like there's a similar narrative in each case, regardless of who's seeing it, regardless of the offering, etc. There's just a consistency in the narrative.
Consistent messaging, consistent branding. I think that, you've engaged quite in-depthly with the Google Cloud ecosystem and aligned to a lot of the executives and what their vision is, right, for the cloud. How do we go to market together? It's top-down approach in the marketing efforts as well, in the communication efforts as well. So I think, you being in the forefront from a SADA perspective, engaging with the executives, that naturally then sends the message all the way down to the field.
Yeah, we're trying to create a balance between sort of, at least I am, from a CEO standpoint, balancing like the cult of personality aspect of Tony's brand versus SADA's brand. There should be a lot of alignment, but it shouldn't be exactly the same thing. There are other reasons to work with SADA other than because Tony's the CEO. And that's a balance that we're trying to hone. And I think it's a little differently than, it's different than some other companies, the way I've seen them do it. So let's go back a little bit in point in time in history when you first started, when we first were hiring our first head of marketing. I remember there was a distinct shift, and I talk about this a lot. I talk about it with our new organizations that are spinning up, such as inside sales and our account management teams and our customer success teams. This concept of mastering our own destiny with regards to awareness, pipeline, new customer acquisition, all those things. Before you came on board, this is probably
over 6 years ago.
2011, 12, 13. Like 2011 and 2012, we had been, in the Google ecosystem for 6 years, still very nascent. But as we saw changes within Google Cloud, which is our primary partner, we felt that those changes had a potentially adverse effect on our destiny. Meaning, as people moved around, relationships shifted, we couldn't go to market in certain categories or certain geographies when our closest relationships moved on to something else. And at the time, our entire destiny was in the hands of those relationships, and the degree to which they personally knew what SADA did, and to the extent that they invited us to participate in their sales motions, introduce us to their customers, and so on and so forth. We had very little influence, very little direct impact, speaking to our potential customers with our own voice that built the credibility around why they should select SADA regardless of what Google was doing in those accounts. So that was the broad decision, and obviously a pivotal moment when we made that distinct decision that we were not going to have our entire destiny in the hands of what our partner felt like, where we should play.
Correct.
So, and it's been an evolution, like our strategies from 2013 and now, we've tried to evolve just in our own maturation, but also learning from the tactics and strategies we observe in those who are best in class at this. So, and you and I talk about this all the time. We pivot all the time. In the last 3 to 5 years, maybe 3 years, what are the biggest changes you've seen in terms of our strategies or market leading strategies around all the efforts around marketing?
I think one of the biggest changes, and we were actually just talking about this with our partner marketing teams is it's no longer a one-touch approach. It's no longer about hitting the customer with one aspects or one tactic. You can't just hit them with constant emails. There has to be an integrated marketing approach to every campaign that we do. And whether that starts with lead gen efforts through online and bringing them into a funnel, but then taking that into an offline with events and relationship building, and then bringing them back online with other, value-added content that you give to them, whether it's white papers, workshops, webinars, tutorials, and that constant value add that you have to hit them up with, because they're not always boom ready from that first email or from that first event. They might be in the research stage. They're in the evaluation stage. We know that moving and migrating to the cloud is a big change for a company. And it's not a decision that's often made alone. This is a decision made with the board at times or with key stakeholders. We need to empower the people that we're working with to be able to go in and have those conversations with their board, with their teams, with their champions. And that takes time to do. That value is what we bring to that. That integrated approach is what SADA brings to the customer.
Yeah, I think there's a couple aspects that we've gotten better at. Certainly multi-channel, yes. And we're implementing more tools to just get better metrics and tracking around those things, which data is going to be really important to.
Data is extremely important.
Refine and fine-tune over time. One concept is, aside from multi-channel, the question is, what do you actually communicate at each touch point? And I think this concept of value transfer at every touch point should be something where the customer should be learning something, knowledge that you're giving away, guidance that you're giving away, an opinion or research or data, something in which, they become smarter. They get a benefit, even if they're not buying from you right now.
Correct. And then a lot of that we have learned over the years of who are we speaking to? What is their needs? That goes back to our persona discussions, right? Really identifying who our customer is for each one of the products and solutions that are offered. And then the vertical conversations. Every vertical has a different, challenge and pain points. How do we speak to that vertical specifically? It's not a one-size-fits-all conversation. And the data, going back to what you were talking about, is the data that we're collecting through these multi-touch initiatives is what's helping us just get better at that conversation.
Yeah, I think vertical is also a shift that Google's making, and just part of the maturation in enterprise software, enterprise services. It's, I always said, and I think it's still true today, is that generally a customer wants to know the answer to two things. One is, can you solve the problem I'm having right now? Have you done it for somebody that looks just like me?
Exactly. Yeah.
And just like me could be, we're a 5,000 employee company in media and entertainment, or 20,000 employee company in healthcare. And the more specific that conversation can be, the better. And it's true that, look, there's certain aspects of, whether it's work transformation with G Suite or, infrastructure modernization with GCP or whatever, there's certain aspects that are certainly applicable horizontally. It's still, email, calendar, identity, like at the core, at the beginning, or it's just, infrastructure assessment in the beginning, planning security network.
From a foundational perspective, there's key infrastructure components that are similar across all industries.
But beyond
that is really where you have to hone in on the workflows and processes that are different in every industry and every company too.
That's right.
And, when it comes to healthcare, right, they have field care providers. How do you get them engaged? How do you get them connected? How do you mobilize them where they're able to provide the care that they need, but still be connected to the data, patient's data, in a secure manner? How do you bring that data back to physicians that are then advising the field? How do you train the field, on what's coming and what new services are available? So healthcare, media entertainment, from a post-production, security, even sharing content, right, through all of their web channels, making sure that, nothing's getting released before it's supposed to be released. Yes. And the security. So the needs are, different once you get into the workflows and really understand how the company works. And that's why working with a partner like a consulting firm, like a SADA Systems, who understands the key components of those industries become more and more important. And that has really been a focus from a marketing perspective in sharing those key insights, sharing the best practices from an industry perspective.
I think one thing that's been helpful in the last several months is when Thomas Kurian came on board, he really started this. And of course, it's something that we started to embrace because it's obviously gaining momentum within Google in terms of how they think. And we have to align to that. But we haven't gotten this level of detailed guidance in the past. It's really the most focused messaging that we've gotten from Google, which is around the pillars. Mm-hmm. And can you talk about that a little bit? Like how does that help us? Mm-hmm. Do you naturally align with the messaging when you see it? And how are we applying it to our own go-to-market efforts?
So Google's solutions selling pillars have really been key for us to align with their go-to-market strategy, but at the same time be able to really look at our internal services and say, where do we best fit in this process, in the solution selling process? And so we've been able to really identify the key areas where we're strongest and we bring the value to the customer. And that is part of the infrastructure modernization and VM migration. It's what we have done for years. It's what we know how to do. We have a strong base of customer testimonials around that, and services are top-notch and premier, as you know. But then there's application development, right? It's, again, been a big part of what we've done, and we've built multiple applications, whether it's been for enterprise or public sector, right? And being able to communicate SADA services from UX UI design, from back-end development, from data warehousing conversations. These are all services that SADA brings that aligns perfectly to how Google is going to market. And so by making sure we have the right content into the right hands, communicating that with not only our internal sellers communicating that, but making sure the Google field teams understands where we're strongest in, and then taking that to market to the customer.
I think that's also helped us identify, and I think it's more important now than ever in this cloud conversation, the journey of customers to the cloud, is it helped us identify, A, what we don't do. Mm-hmm. That's not really our core competency. And, we believe that you can't be best in class on everything. So you kind of have to choose your lanes. Mm-hmm. But also to some extent where we do want to be leading class and kind of it's provided us guidance for that, like hybrid. Mm-hmm. When we see hybrid, we think Anthos. Yes, we do want to be market leading in that, and that's what we're developing and working towards. I think those pillars also, again, the timing is quite good because beginning of this year, especially you and I talked about internally the shift for marketing. Of course, just the divestiture, I think, helped us focus in this realm. I remember when it was like the sellers and the delivery teams, the practice heads would get together and say, oh, we want to package this thing. And then they would come up with something, what the offering was, pricing, and they would just hand it to marketing and say, hey, can you make a white paper on this? Or can you make a one pager, post a blog about this? So it was like one directional conversation, and marketing was only pulled in at the end, where this year I think we're taking more of a sophisticated approach, which is marketing is actually there at the beginning of the ideation phase. Correct. Of what capabilities should we be building in the first place.
Right. And I think that, going back to the old scenario is when we would get those packages, while our internal teams and developer teams and engineering teams were really passionate about this package, from the marketing side, we're saying, based on our data, nobody wants to buy this, right? So I think we're finally gotten to that stage where marketing is able to use this data to really understand the trends in the customer at the end of the day, and to be able to come back to our teams and say, this is what the customer needs. What can we package together to cater to this pain point? What can we take to market to solve this problem?
Yeah.
And so that's, I think, where marketing really brings a lot more impact to the teams, along with sales, because sales is also having conversations, right, with the customers on a regular basis. And while we're working very, very closely with the sales teams on a lot better than we ever used to previously. So I think that collaboration has improved when we're bringing each other value.
Yeah, and I think it's good to be in a position finally after a long time where we also really trust Google's data around the solutions. And it feels like it is a very well-informed set of guidelines.
Yes.
We're beyond...
Great playbook.
It's a great playbook. No, and we trust that. Obviously not blindly. We have a lot of data points too from customers, from our teams, from our awesome leaders and people, on the ground, working in the field in real terms. There's a lot of intelligence that we gather from that too. But the playbook is more helpful than ever because it's extremely well informed. Like, yes, Google Cloud can do a lot of things, but let's not work on, 12-month projects that have a marginal impact.
Correct.
Just because they're interesting. Let's work on the things that are transformational, ambitious, big.
And have immediate impact.
Yeah.
Right.
Not, as I've heard Google executives and others say, like, no more science experiments.
Yeah. Those could be fun at times, for long-term goals.
Fun. No, we want to have a skunk works, where you do like interesting things like we did at the booth at Next around telemetry data and things like that. Those are interesting. You want to push the envelope for those, for sure. So Google Cloud, more helpful than ever in our execution on the marketing programs, for sure. And I think a lot of the interaction now is also shifting to customers. We have something like 3,000 customers, new logos every quarter, different phases of delivery and adoption and consumption. Projects are at different phases all the time with different customers. Yesterday, I learned that on the G Suite side alone, we've done 112 go lives this year.
Yes, very exciting.
I think all of last year we had 100. So this is not quite the end of H1, and we've done 112. So customers are at different phases. And what we believe, you and I both, and Google is also prioritizing this, is customer stories are very, very important. It's not enough for us in Google to just cover the market with our views and our perspectives and what we think is great and whatever. It's much more valuable, 100 times more valuable to have customers talk about it.
Absolutely. You don't want to, sit and toot your own horn all the time, right? Really, the credibility comes from successful customers. Customers who have transformed, customers who have seen an amazing impact in their company, customers who have really been able to change how the culture is within a company because they went to the cloud, because they went with the Google Cloud specifically, right? And the customer stories and how they're told, I think, is also changed. The videos, if you look at videos from, 3-4 years ago to customer videos of today, are completely different. Because I think previously we missed that emotional component of telling that story. How
it was
does
very
it
technical.
affect? Yeah, it was very technical. It was, very technical in your challenges, very technical in how you solve those problems. And what's changed is, how did you impact the way this employee works on a daily basis?
Yes.
That story has completely changed.
Or how you go to market. Like
Exactly.
the video we're going to film next week with MedHive. That's all about how Google Cloud has allowed them to build an amazing company on top of Google Cloud, which is fantastic. And I can't wait to hear more about just straight from their mouths.
The conversation is no longer about like, how did we help that company, but how did we help that company help their customers?
Exactly. Precisely. And the more successful they are, the more successful we're going to be. The more Google Cloud they're going to use and consume, which is indication of value transfer. It's like if you're, using more Google Cloud, it means it's working.
It's working. It's helping them innovate, and the ability for them to scale at a faster pace, ability to innovate at a faster pace, is only going to really make a bigger and larger impact. And, because of our teams being in those, accounts on a continuous basis, from our TAM services to our cloud managed services, we're able to really help them reach those goals long term.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, okay, we got you here, we're out, it's all on you. It's always like, okay, what is the next goal that you have that we can help you get to? It
is a lifetime value conversation. It is a lifetime engagement model. Dana talked about this as well. It's very different. I think professional services is different than it's ever been. I think the categorization of companies like SADA, like what are we? Are we a VAR? Are we an SI? Are we a reseller? Are we these are like very archaic in my view, because customers really want the entire value chain. If they can be provided by the same partner that's quarterbacking their journey, I think there's a lot of value in that. And that's certainly how we're building this company.
And I don't think you could be just one of those things and survive long term.
Not in cloud.
Yeah, exactly. So that end-to-end, that full circle service provider is key for a customer, because once you establish a trust with the partner, with the pod, with the team that you're regularly working with, why do you want to change and start all over again, right, for your next project? It's basically, you have to continue that partnership long term and bring the value long term.
In phase one, whatever you're deploying, honestly, it's almost like you're laying the foundation. And we've seen this in G Suite customers and Google Cloud customers and Maps customers, Cloud Search customers. There's a level of consistency. It's bring your pets to SADA Day.
It's bring your pets to SADA Day.
Do you want to introduce your friend there?
I have my dog here. He's a Maltese mix. His name is Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan is 3 years old, and this is his first work day.
It's also his first podcast.
It's also his first podcast. So far, he's been good.
It's been great. All right. So what do we have to look forward to for H2? What are all the things we have going on?
Oh my goodness. It is going to be a very busy H2. We're excited about the Google Cloud Summits coming up. We're going to be hitting 3 cities, Chicago, Seattle, and Atlanta.
All right.
In addition to that, we have a few grand openings of SADA offices. So we're excited about those. We'll be doing San Francisco and Toronto and Chicago.
All right.
But I think, just kind of really looking at where we ended on H1 and how can we continue that momentum for H2? We've built a huge pipeline. We've had an amazing customer, base. Now, how do we leverage that momentum into the rest of the year? And continuing those relationships that we built from H1 into second, third, fourth touch points, and how to engage with the customers and help them get to the next stage in their transformation journey is a big part of the marketing priority as sales as well.
Awesome. It's been an exciting 2019 so far. H2 is going to be action-packed. I'm sure we'll all be tracking all the activities that we're doing because
data.
We're very vocal about the things we do these days. They're all over social. Yes. By we, I mean also me.
You're the leader.
Got to lead by example.
Yes.
It was a pleasure to speak with you. Thanks for joining Cloud and Clear, and we'll do more of these.
Thank you for bringing marketing to the forefront.
Of course. And thank you for bringing Obi onto the podcast. You've been a very, very good dog, Obi.
Yes, he has.
Good boy.
Thank you for listening to Cloud and Clear. Check the show notes for links to this week's topics. And don't forget to connect with us on Twitter @Cloud and Clear and our website, sada.com. Be sure to rate and review the show on your favorite podcast app.